Just a few minutes ago, the jobs report for September was released. This had been held back because of the government shutdown, the longest shutdown in history. But now we know what the job situation was in September. And the news is better than expected. Let's get to Matt Egan on this. What are we seeing?
Well, John, look, we had to wait a very long time for this report, and it's painting a mixed picture about the state of the job market entering the government shutdown. Here's the good news. The good news is the U.S. economy added 119,000 jobs during the month of September. That is well ahead of expectations, which were for around 50,000. It's also well ahead of what's needed to keep the job market on a stable footing. So that is good news. The bad news, though, is the unemployment rate. It goes up from 4.3%, unexpectedly rising to 4.4%. That is a fresh four-year high. So pretty mixed there. We also got some disappointing news in terms of revisions to prior months. Now, as you know, sometimes when new information comes in, they revise the numbers. And so what we saw was that August, and you can see it on this chart, August was revised from slightly positive. It was a weak number of 22,000. Now it's negative 4,000. You see it on that chart going below zero. So that is the second month of the last four where the U.S. economy actually lost jobs. So the summer, we knew it was weak. It was actually weaker than we realized. July was also revised a little bit lower. So you can see why people have been concerned, because the U.S. economy had been gaining a lot of jobs each month, and that has really slowed down. But again, the good news, though, is that September was a bigger rebound than anticipated. And digging into some of the sectors here, manufacturing, which is that key sector that the president is trying to prop up with sky-high tariffs, it lost jobs again. Another 6,000 jobs were lost in manufacturing during the month of September. That continues a trend there. However, construction, which had been under some pressure because of immigration, because of tariffs, because of interest rates, gained jobs, and that is an improvement. Healthcare, that's been a go-to sector as far as jobs, also gaining jobs there. One last point here, John. Because we found out that the October jobs report is not getting released, this number is extra important because it's the last full jobs report that the Federal Reserve has before making its last interest rate decision of the year next month.
Do you think this makes it more likely they cut? This shows an economy that's okay. September was okay.
I think it probably doesn't move the needle much right now, which is leaning against an interest rate cut. The odds have been falling for an interest rate cut in recent days, and it's probably going to stay kind of where it is because this is pretty mixed.
Pretty mixed. You see the unemployment rate going up even with okay number of jobs added, and those downward revisions really interesting. So now we have 2 months of negative growth.
Yes,
this
after
summer.
4 years of none.
All right, Matt Egan, thank you very much for that. Kate?
All right, joining us right now is Pete Seat, former White House spokesperson for President George W. Bush and former spokesperson for the Indiana Republican Party. So there's a lot of mixed going on. We've got this new jobs report coming out, Pete, but also you got these numbers from a Fox News poll of how people are feeling about the economy, and talk about kind of this mixed bag. Some 76% of voters in this Fox News poll view the economy negatively, and that is worse than it was over the summer. And by a nearly 2-to-1 margin, voters say that Donald Trump, the President Trump, is more responsible for the current economy than Joe Biden. So you've got economic data and you've got how people feel about it. What level of alarm should this be raising inside the White House right now about how people are feeling about the economy?
Well, the 2024 election was about vibes, and that was to the benefit of Donald J. Trump. And the 2026 election will likely also be about those very same vibes, namely affordability. People are not looking at big ticket items that are rarely purchased like cars and homes. They're looking at consumer staples. They're looking at the costs of goods when they go to their local grocery store and when they pump gas at the station. Now, some of those numbers are going down, but aren't necessarily being felt yet. It takes time. And I do think that a mistake that the administration made, that the campaign made, was promising overnight success. Getting these numbers to go down and for Americans to feel that in their pocketbooks takes time, and the administration needs to be realistic about that.
Yeah, and because, set Trump aside, this will, as you're saying, is going to have a real impact on how people are feeling when it comes to the midterms. And on that point, when it comes to the midterms, this relates to a situation actually that's playing out in Indiana right now, our wonderfully loved shared state, which is that the president is now threatening, Pete, to back primary challengers against Indiana Republicans over the push to redistrict and bring the redistricting fight to Indiana and rewrite congressional maps more in in Republicans' favor. Republicans in the state Senate in Indiana, they've just announced that they're not going to. They can't do it because they don't have the votes. And the president's saying now he's going to back primary challengers against Republicans over this. What is going on there?
What you have going on here is the tension between fidelity to principle and flirtations with politics. The political argument is an easy one to make. You want more seats for Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives. So rather than win on the merits, you go redraw the lines to make them easier to win. The principal argument, on the other hand, is harder to make. It's harder for people to grasp because it's so antiquated in this environment for politicians to be principled that it's now a novelty. Yet you have a majority of the Indiana Republican State Senate caucus that believes firmly that the lines that they drew in 2021 and passed into law in 2021 were done correctly. They were not gerrymandered, and there's no reason to go back on that to score short-term political points that could ultimately result in long-term pain for the party.
And what we're looking at here is it's a 7-2 split, if you will. Republicans right now have 7 of the congressional seats. Check me if I'm wrong on this, because I think I'm remembering this right. Democrats have 2 of the seats. And what they were hoping to do when they redraw this, of course, is to have all 9 be Republican. But the fact that you've got a federal judge that just told Texas, which was the kind of the center of the universe on this one, telling Texas that it cannot use the new maps that it drew for the midterms, that decision is being appealed. But still, if it holds, does that play, or is that playing into the hesitation from Indiana Republicans on this?
I think that does play into it, but again, it comes back to a principled argument. We, for 20 years, Republicans have said we don't gerrymander, that we draw congressional districts and state House and Senate districts.
Right, but
that
Pete, this entire environment is
of
fighting fire with fire. There is no fidelity to principle anymore. And how is it only happening in the Hoosier State?
Well, you should know better than anyone, Kate, because we stand on principle. We are good, hearty people in the Hoosier State. But that's why this story is so fascinating to people who live outside of Indiana. All the noise in favor of redistricting is coming from Washington and small social media echo chambers. When these state senators hear from their constituents, they are hearing overwhelming opposition. I hear this privately, and I've read this publicly. They've talked about this. When they run into constituents in the grocery store or at church or getting a haircut, they're hearing people say, don't do this. Indiana does it right. We don't see why we should change that.
I'm now realizing the mistake of this segment, which is you've got 2 people who are so biased in favor of just the entire state of Indiana. I don't know how we can publicly, possibly speak about this in a fair way. It's good to see you, Pete. I will say this, though. Pete does know what's going on when it comes to Indiana, especially Republican politics. So it's great to see you, buddy. Thank you so much.